Questions to the Prime Minister. Question number 1, Mr. David Hansard. Order. Now, order. I ask the House down. Order. I ask the House to behave reasonably at this time. The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir. This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, including one with Professor Landsbergis of Lithuania. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall be having further meetings later today.
Mr. Hinchcliffe.
Is the Prime Minister proud of the fact that her attempts to privatise the National Health Service have resulted in the loss of nearly 5,000 hospital beds so far this year, including 100 in the Wakefield area? Has she any real idea of the very real pain and discomfort facing vast numbers of patients on waiting lists as a direct result of her policies? Haven't we reached the stage where she really should be spending more time at home with Dennis and making way for a Labour Prime Minister who actually believes in a National Health Service?
Mr. Speaker, our policies have resulted in 1 million more patients a year being treated. In the last 4 years, the increase in expenditure on the health service has gone up from 1988, 24 billion to 26 billion to 29 billion, and the latest to 32 billion, an increase of nearly 50% in real terms over the position when we took over. That is a very good record. It could never have been surpassed, let alone equalled, by the party opposite.
Mr. David Atkinson.
Speaker, can my right honourable friend tell the House as to what advice she gave President Landsbergis of Lithuania in support of his demand for his country's independence?
Mr. Speaker, the same advice that I have given him before, that we have never in fact recognised that Lithuania was legally annexed. We have never recognised that, and therefore we have never allowed ambassadorial or consuls in that country. We recognise the difficulties therein now. We believe it can be satisfied by negotiations. We recognise, too, that those have run into unexpected difficulties recently, and we shall do our level best to take those up to see that negotiations resume.
Mr. Neil Kinnock.
Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister join me in agreeing with her new Secretary of State for Education in his very firm opposition to the daft idea of education vouchers?
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend, the new Secretary of State for Education, said almost precisely the same as I did in the House. Almost precisely the same. If the right honourable gentleman had done his homework before he came in, he would know that.
Mr. Speaker, it gives a new meaning to the word almost. Why is the Prime Minister being so evasive about this question of education vouchers? After all I asked her was whether she agreed with a minister in her cabinet. Why can't she simply say that she backs the Education Secretary on this very important question?
But in fact, the Education Secretary backed me.
Order. Takes time.
We said, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Well, order. This takes a great deal of time from backbenchers.
May I now read to the right honourable gentleman what he should have read before he came in, and he'll find that my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, said precisely the same as I did, and I said precisely the same as he did. He will find it. No, Mr. Speaker, they never like facts, but maybe I can get them out. 18th of October, oral answers. Oral answers in reply to the right honourable gentleman. In education, we're attempting to increase choice in city technology colleges and grant-maintained schools and with open roles. He then asked me about vouchers, and I pointed out that vouchers are one and only one method of what we are already operating. The money follows the pupil. Of course I'm reading. Had the right honourable gentleman read it before he came in, he could have saved himself a question. May I read the sentence again? They are one and only one method of what we are already operating. The money follows the pupil. That is a form of giving extra choice and of giving the voucher to the parent of the pupil.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thought the Prime Minister had formally declared herself against stonewalling, but it appears that that doesn't extend to Prime Minister's question time. Can I just put it very simply to the Prime Minister? The Secretary of State for Education said education vouchers were not on the agenda. I have never been in favor of them. I don't think they play any part in the government's plans. I don't think you need vouchers. Does she agree with him?
I refer him to the complete answer I gave in column 1374 when I pointed out that we are already introducing a pilot scheme for vouchers in training. That is a cabinet policy, and in education we are increasing choice. I know the right honourable gentleman is against increasing choice, but again, had he read the reply, he needn't have asked the question. Perhaps he'd better go back to bowling from the nursery end.
Mr. Christopher Butler.
I don't know whether my right honourable friend has a chance to watch Sky Television. But last night.
Oh, well, we're going to make very slow progress at this rate. Come on, Mr. Butler.
But last night, there was an absolutely devastating exposure of conditions in Romanian orphanages, where conditions are absolutely disgusting. Will my right honourable friend review this programme and see if any initiative can be made by the UK government?
Mr. Speaker, I didn't see that particular television programme, but I have seen others which indicate those conditions, and obviously it is one of the things that we would wish to help with. When we got a request from Romania previously, for example, about temporary syringes, disposable syringes, we met it immediately, but I'm very much aware of the problem and we'll have a look at it again.
Ashton!
Did the Prime Minister see today the disgraceful attack carried out by supporters of her cause on 3 of her colleagues in the Sun newspaper today? Since it is her position that ought to set the standards of public life in Britain today, will she take this opportunity unequivocally to condemn this attempt to smear her colleagues, to undermine democracy in her party, and thereby to cheapen our public life?
I share the right honourable gentleman's concern. Politics are about policy. They should never be about personal attacks on people's way of living. I totally condemn any such personal attacks.
Sir Nicholas Bunzer!
Is my right honourable friend aware? Is my right honourable friend aware that there is deep concern felt in the armed forces at the continual suggestion that there should be cuts in our army manpower at a time when both the Gulf and Northern Ireland have great calls upon our strength? Will my right honourable friend take this opportunity to say categorically that our armed forces will be kept at a level which is necessary for the tasks which face them?
Mr. Speaker, that is an undertaking I can give. The tasks which face us are changing, as my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Defence, has indicated to the House, and therefore we're looking at options for change. He is now coming across with particular policies to meet those options for change that are intended always to see that our defence is sure enough to meet whatever attack may come from whatever quarter it may come.
Tamdale!
Mr. Speaker, sir, my bilateral discussions with King Hussein did not cover this subject, as I made clear to the honourable member on the 7th of November. However, if a tyrant is never to be fought in order that freedom and justice may be restored, tyranny will triumph with all its brutality, and the environment of human rights which we seek to extend will have received a fatal blow.
King Hussein is right, and 50,000 million barrels of oil equivalent go up in flames. What then results in the terms of the carbon monoxide, the carbon dioxide, the sulfur dioxide? And what does this do to people and planet?
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member wishes to avert such a tragedy, there is one method which would do it easily. That is for Saddam Hussein to withdraw totally from Kuwait, the legitimate government to be restored. I would not necessarily accept King Hussein's figures, because I think the figures that I have are a little bit different, but I think that that is not the main point. Saddam Hussein withdraws. That could not put right or wrong because of the brutality which has been perpetrated in his name. But that is the answer to the honourable member's question.
Sir Bernard Brain.
Can my right honourable friend say whether on the occasion referred to there was any discussion of the human consequences of Saddam Hussein's actions so far? For example, the killing of tens of thousands of his own people in Iraqi Kurdistan by the use of poison gas. For example, even today, the killing and the torturing of Kuwaiti citizens in the territory his armies have occupied. If we are going to have statements of this kind, let a proper balance sheet be struck.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my right honourable friend. As he knows, Saddam Hussein has used chemical weapons, both in war and on his own people, the Kurds, and we were one of the foremost countries in condemning him. He also, we believe, has at his disposal biological weapons. It is contrary to the law to make them, let alone to use them. We also believe that he is not far from having nuclear weapons. But the strongest point of all is the terrible brutalities and barbarities that he has perpetrated, which cannot just be left. Kuwait must, in fact, be restored, and must be restored. If he will not withdraw, we must do it by the military option.
Mr. Chris Mullen.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mullen.
May I wish the Prime Minister well in her current difficulty, and say that whilst I can't speak for members on her side, many of us on this side are rooting for her. Is the Prime Minister aware that today an auction is taking place in Sunderland of the assets of the last remaining shipyard? And that auction is taking place despite the fact that bids were received from companies that were willing, without subsidy, to build and repair ships in that yard. Is the Prime Minister aware that if she had resisted the EEC veto, with a fraction of the resistance she offered in her other European adventures, she would have enjoyed wider support? And will she take this opportunity to apologise to the people of Sunderland?
Mr. Speaker, the closure of that shipyard, as the honourable gentleman is aware, was announced in 1988 after negotiations with the Commission in Europe. And in return for the closure, we had a new enterprise zone in Sunderland and a 45 million package to assist the people of Sunderland to come into new industries, the industries of tomorrow, because as the honourable gentleman is aware, we had too much shipbuilding capacity in this country. It was a reasonable deal for Sunderland, and I think a better one than had we in fact put subsidies into an old industry, and we were not able to put extra subsidies in because of our agreement with the Commission, and indeed it would not have been the right thing to do.
Mr. Andrew Mitchell.
Four, sir.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mitchell.
In view of the fact that the autumn statement has been received by the financial markets and by our constituents with great satisfaction,
right honourable friend feel that the decision to spend an extra £3,000 million on health will finally give the lie to any suggestion that this government is not firmly committed to an excellent NHS?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right. It was a settlement which kept firm control of public spending, which is necessary for financial prudence, which nevertheless found sufficient resources to meet our commitments to the social services, to pensioners, to health, and extra for the disabled, and which at the same time is able to redeem some of past debt, a lot of it built up by honourable gentlemen opposite. That is an account of very good stewardship on the part of my right honourable friend, the Chief Secretary and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and I congratulate them both.